Hi, thanks for watching. Today is new release day at Technique Junkies. All the new release stamps are on sale for 15% off now through August the 8th. If you're like me and you've got to have it all, there is a Gotta Have It All bundle, which is on sale for $79.99. I'll have links below in my description box so that you can find a direct link to the Gotta Have It All bundle. And I'll have links below for the other products that I use. For things that are not on sale, you can use my code TJ10Tracy to save 10%. That's for items that are not on sale. That excludes the Gotta Have It All bundle because you're getting a discount on that already. Let's have a look at all these stamps and then I'll demonstrate to you how I use some of these stamps to create some really cool cards. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to show you each stamp and I'm going to describe it to you, and I'll give you the stamp name and the stamp item number. That way, if you want to get the stamp, you can jot it down. The first one is called Writer's Block. It is number S749. It features a quill, which is a feather that you write with, and some script and some ink blots, and some of that script is scratched through, so it's a very grungy type of stamp. Then we have this super cute set of 4. It's called Your Vintage. It's SS149. Has 4 really cute sayings. A good life is a collection of happy moments. You're not old, you're vintage. It takes a long time to grow an old friend, and just a note. I love the just a note because of the old-fashioned script. I'm going to use that in conjunction with the writer's block stamp that I just showed you. I think they're going to turn into a really cool card. These sentiments are nice. They're nice to size, and they're all different fonts. Next we have Grunge Circles set of 9. Again, this one is SS151. It has several different circles, different sizes, with grungy backgrounds. And the one even has a crown. They have musical notes, script, and just lines, and just like it looks like if you would drop something on the floor and step on it. So really great background circles, or you can make them the focal point as well. Here we have a really cool stamp. This is a background stamp. It's called Vintage French Advertisements. It is number S953. So I like this one. It has some really cool advertisements, little ads that you would have seen. They are French, and there's even a fountain pen, a little cake, a stopwatch, a pocket watch, some words, and the word Paris a couple times on there. That's a very nice one. Okay, and then we have another really cool one. It's called Victorian Collage, and it's S962, which features the gentleman with his top hat on, some flowers, some bricks, some scrolls, some musical instruments, and then skirts of 3 women from the Victorian times. This one is very interesting, and it's one that we're going to use today. And then finally, we've got a distressed paint background stamp. It is S917, and it looks like paint that is crackled or crackling. So sometimes I know on our cards we try to get that crackle effect. Well, here you can get it without even getting out the crackle paste. And it's a nice big background stamp. Okay, then there are several smaller sentiment stamps. Some of them have images as well. This one is called Inappropriate. It is SDX220. It says, "You're never too old to say something inappropriate." It's a nice little cute stamp. All of these stamps are red rubber stamps. This one has what I would think is like June Cleaver on the front of it. And this is See What Happens. I've reached the age where my brain goes from, I probably shouldn't say that, to, what the hell, let's see what happens. This is SD1190. Super hilarious and love the image. Just reminds me of June Cleaver. So wholesome, saying, hey, what the heck, let's see what happens. I've reached that age, right? I feel like I've reached that age too. Next one is called Bad Example. Someone has to set a bad example. SDX214. Another cute, sort of snarky stamp, which Technique Junkies is well known for their cute and snarky stamps. Next we have Queenagers, set of 2. This is SD1178. It says, we're women of a certain age. We're not senior women. We're not old ladies. We're queenagers. And then a separate happy birthday. First of all, I love that we're queenagers. That's so cool. And then I love the font. And it has its own separate happy birthday. Just fell in love with that one right away. Then this one is called Too Old for Snapchat. It is SDX213. And it says, too old for Snapchat, too young for Life Alert. Another super cute, funny card that you could put on somebody's birthday card. Now, we're going to be using Shimmering Bliss sprays. I have just grabbed a bunch of my Shimmering Bliss sprays. I have Chestnut Mare, Worn Saddle, and Gold. Shimmering Bliss sprays. I also have Harvest Sunset here. Shimmering Bliss sprays are available through Technique Junkies. And there's also a Gotta Have It All discount if you want to purchase the entire set. When you go to make your purchases today, if you could please mention that Tracy Schultz sent you, that'd be great. This one is called Mixed Metals. And I'm going to do a demonstration on how I like to use them. So I'm just taking, this one is the Smoldering Ash. I'm just taking my splat box and I'm just spraying the Shimmering Bliss pretty close to the paper. And I'm going to layer just different colors on top of each other. There's also silver. These are mica powders. And they have a lot of mica in them. You have to roll them between your hands to get the mica activated. Otherwise, it all stays at the bottom of the bottle. But once you get them going, you can have a lot of fun with them and make some really great backgrounds. And that's really all I'm doing today. Just demonstrating to you how I make my backgrounds. And what I normally do is I use heavier cardstock, sometimes even watercolor cardstock, but I always use Accent Opaque 120 pound if I have it. I find that that's a nice heavy cardstock and it holds up to the water that's in the spray. And then I put my sprayed panel aside and I grab another one and then I just keep creating from there. Now this is a larger piece of paper. This one is actually a piece of watercolor paper. And I'm going in with the Harvest Sunset and going and making my streaks. Now I'm not too worried. I'm just making streaks and some blobs. That's okay with me. Because this one is gold. Because I'm trying to get some, just, I don't know, grungy background. I'm just trying to let the product provide a little bit of texture. And you can use a heat tool to heat set this if you'd like, but I prefer to just let mine air dry. I always plan ahead so that I can give my sprayed background panels enough time. So here I am just letting that drip down so it can cover the entire piece of paper. And it also gives me some nice streaks. And instead of spraying more, I'm just going to let this one dry. So I have a paper towel. And I'm using that just to pick up some of that Shimmering Bliss spray that ran off. But then I decide to also take the paper towel over the paper. And it actually absorbs some of that, but it also helps me to flatten that paper down. And so I thought, well, I'm going to give it a little bit more gold look to it. So as you see, I'm rolling the bottle between my hands, and that's the best way to activate the mica. Instead of going up and down shaking it, you want to roll it. And I'm just trying to get some of that product just to make the paper look more golden. And as I said earlier, I will make several panels at one time, and depending on what the stamp is and what the theme of the card is, that's how I decide which colors to select of Shimmering Bliss sprays. I have all the colors and definitely find that this is a great product. One question people will ask me is, do you need to spray or do some kind of seal over top of your Shimmering Bliss spray? You don't have to, but sometimes I'll spray mine with hairspray. That's one way to do for to set the product, but you don't have to with Shimmering Bliss. All right, I just wanted to let you know that. There's not much fallout or mica that comes off on your fingers. Okay, so now moving on to my next panel and using many of the same colors. For the sake of time, I'm going to turn this on fast forward. And I'm spraying some Worn Saddle. There's Smoldering Ash. I already sprayed the gold down. Here I'm using my heat tool, and I'm actually dipping the paper. Well, trying to. The lid kept falling down. Dipping the paper back in to the excess that slid off the paper. And then I'm just respraying it. You can dry it and then spray it again. However you want to do it is fine. Just trying to get it so that I can just get that water to dry. And that one has a nice gold look to it. And if you don't use it as a background, you can always use it to do die cuts or to stamp your sentiments. So just I would encourage you to get your Shimmering Bliss sprays out. I know a lot of you have them and you don't use them. Just spend some time making some background panels. You will put them to use at some point for sure. Got another larger piece of paper here, and I think that product was clogged. If they ever get clogged, you can take them to the sink and run hot water through the sprayer part to unclog them. All right. That color was Chestnut Mare that I was having trouble, but I did use it to just drop some spots down. And then I'm using gold to activate those spots. You can use water to activate those droplets. But that's another really cool effect of using the Shimmering Bliss sprays. This one is really looking nice. I do use my heat tool because there is so much excess water. And go ahead and turn it over and just use the paper on the bottom of the box to just kind of soak up some of that extra. And I think it looks really nice. I like the Chestnut Mare because it has a bit of a red to it. And that looks like it's going to be an excellent background for one of these cool new stamps from Technique Junkies. The final panel I'm using Smoldering Ash and Silver. Smoldering Ash has a bit of a grayish purple color to it, and silver is like a metallic silver. Together they make a really nice background that has grays, silvers, even a little bit of a light purple undertone. And I am going to use this today on a card that I am creating using some of the new stamps from Technique Junkies. So don't be afraid to use your sprays. Get them out and play with them. You're going to be pleased with the results, and it's going to give you some beautiful backgrounds that have so much shimmer, so much shimmering bliss that it's going to just shine. This stamp is the one we're going to use today for the first card. This is called Writer's Block. It is number S749. I'm using my stamp platform, and I'm using it without any foam, just the background stamp and the panel that I created. I have that one that I thought looked like an old piece of paper, and I'm using Catherine Pooler Midnight ink, which, by the way, you can purchase Catherine Pooler inks through Technique Junkies. You can use my discount code TJ10Tracy to save 10% off when you order them through Technique Junkies. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use my little handheld handheld stamp pressure tool and just apply the pressure needed for that ink to transfer onto that panel. And there are some spots that didn't stamp, probably because I need to apply more pressure. So I'm just going to apply a little bit more pressure. I did not re-ink it. I left it with the ink that was on it, and that came through wonderfully. That's what that stamp looks like. It's got the ink splots, the quill, the handwriting with scratching through it. And then I'm going to stamp it one more time just so that I have a nice impression of the stamped image. I could also see myself using a cream colored paper if I didn't have any homemade background panels available. So if you have an off-white colored paper, that would work too. But I think that looks really nice, and I think the Shimmering Bliss background really adds to the paper's appearance of being old and worn. Now I'm going to grab the sentiment set, Your Vintage, set of 4. The item number is SS149, and I'm going to heat emboss the sentiment Just a Note. I'm using my Rabbit Hole Designs embossing powder tool. This is a tool that helps to remove any oils or fingerprints on my paper. It's got powder in it, and then I just go ahead and use some Versamark ink for my sentiment, and then I'm going to use Midnight ink on top of that, and then I'm going to emboss it with clear embossing powder. One of the things I like to do with my sentiments that are black is, instead of using black embossing powder, stamp it with a black ink and then emboss it with a clear embossing powder. All right, so once I have this nice and stamped, I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece of scratch paper and open it up to create a funnel, and then just go ahead and apply the clear embossing powder on top. By the way, the paper that I have is a cream colored, sort of a linen looking paper. It's not linen though. Back in the day, whenever people were typing resumes, I bought some paper from Staples that looked like parchment paper, I guess you can say. I've saved it and use it for card making now. It just, I don't know, there's just something about this paper. First of all, it's a nice heavy weight, but I can't find it anymore at Staples. I don't think they carry it anymore. But I've used it before on many, many cards to give it an antique look. That's what I'm trying to say. Now I'm going to go ahead and spray this with some Shimmering Bliss spray. So that's another thing you can do. You can heat emboss first. And this is gold colored Shimmering Bliss spray. You can heat emboss first and then use your Shimmering Bliss. But I'm just trying to create some color and texture for this paper, and also so that it matches the background panel that I've created. I'm bringing in many of the same colors of Shimmering Bliss spray that I used on the panel where I used that writer's block stamp. All right, so the next color that I'm going to spray it with is Chestnut Mare, so I was able to get that unclogged. I'm just going to go ahead and roll it between my hands and then spray that Chestnut Mare. And then just use a paper towel just to blot a little bit so that, I'm not covering up that embossed sentiment completely. Okay, and then I did use my heat tool to dry that sentiment. So I've got my panel here, and I'm using decal trimmer to cut down the edges of this panel, trying to get it to 4 by 5 1/4. That's what I was aiming for with that panel. And then I also used the decal trimmer to trim the sentiment. Off camera, I also trimmed some matte layers behind the writer's block stamped panel. I have a piece of craft color cardstock, and behind the sentiment just a note, I have a piece of black cardstock, and then I adhered everything to a A2 size black card panel. Now I'm just using some foam tape to pop the sentiment up a little bit, give it a little bit of dimension. Once I have that done, this card is finished. And we're going to go ahead and make one more card today using a stamp from this new release set of stamps. Okay, I'm going to put my sentiment in the middle, but not really in the middle because it's more over to the left side because I didn't want to cover up that feather quill. Now I'm going to be using Victorian Collage. The item number is S962. I'm going to start off with a blank piece of paper. I'm actually using hammer mill paper at this point. I'm trying to get a nice impression with this really very detailed background stamp. Another way you could do this instead of trying to press it would be to stamp the image and then take your piece of paper and press it on top of the stamp instead of pressing the stamp down into the paper. But I was able to get a good impression. Now I'm going to take one of these sentiments. I'm going to be taking You're Not Old, You're Vintage. And again, this is Hammermill Premium Color Copy Paper. This is 80 pound. And I am going to heat emboss my sentiment the same way I did my previous sentiment using the Rabbit Hole Designs embossing powder tool. And then I'm going to actually use Twilight ink. So that's a gray ink, but instead of using clear embossing powder, I'm going to be using silver embossing powder. So basically I've got gray sentiment with silver embossing powder for this sentiment. Okay, and I'm just sprinkling my embossing powder on here and putting my embossing powder back in using my paper as a funnel. And let's go ahead and heat this up. I don't use silver embossing powder that much. I will have to say that I use gold more frequently, but it's looking pretty good to me. Now I'm going to try to use another technique that I wanted to share with you using Shimmering Bliss and Twilight ink from Catherine Pooler. So I'm going to go ahead and push my ink pad down on my glass media mat. Take my Shimmering Bliss spray, make sure I roll it between my hands good, and then spray right on top with, this is Smoldering Ash. Okay, I'm going to spray the Shimmering Bliss right with that ink. So not only is my paper going to benefit from the Shimmering Bliss, but it's also going to benefit from that ink. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of water just to soften it a bit. Now I'm liking the way that's looking. And I'm just going to take my panel and just dip it. Whoops, I dropped it. Just dip it in into this ink with Shimmering Bliss mixture. So that's another way that you can use your Shimmering Bliss spray. I was just trying to create a silvery background. I am going to use my heat gun to dry this. And it is not a paper that takes a lot of water, but I just used a little bit of water and it stands up just fine. I just have to make sure I dry it with my heat gun just to get all that excess water off the paper or out of the paper. Yeah, it does curl a little bit, but that's okay with me. I can always sit on my paper and flatten it out a bit. That's what Pat Huntoon, the owner of Technique Junkies, calls your bum oven. It helps you to flatten out any kind of curled paper. This was Shimmering Bliss Spray, Smoldering Ash. Now I've got Twilight ink, and I've got my background panel, and I'm doing the same exact thing I did with my sentiment, just blotting up that ink and drying it, adding a little bit of water here and there. And it looks like, oh, I've got this real dark area, but you know, it turns out to look really cool, you guys. You'll see once this card is finished. It does dry lighter, obviously. I'm sorry, I don't know what I was doing there. Something with my electronic device, I guess. Okay. Doesn't take long for me to dry this using my heat gun, and then I go in with that Smoldering Ash Shimmering Bliss, and I spray it directly on top of the panel, which I think gives it that perfect shiny shimmery look. So I'm really pleased with that one. All right, now that everything's flat, you can see how nice and flat it is. I'll go ahead and use my decal trimmer and trim it down. This was great using these stamps and giving them sort of a grungy look, because the decal trimmer works really well with that type and style of card. So I was really pleased to be able to bring this all together. All right, so I've got my panels. I did 2 of them. They are ready, and I'm going to create a matte layer. So do you remember when I used my Shimmering Bliss earlier and I created that real pretty silverish gray panel? I'm going to trim that down and use that as my matte layer for behind my Victorian Collage. I'm sorry that I'm off camera here, folks. Hopefully I get back in screen here really quickly. All I'm doing is using my decal trimmer. I'm just chomping down those edges until I get them to be the size that I need them to be. All right, so I ended up using a piece of that sprayed Shimmering Bliss panel for my background, for my sentiment, my background matte layer. I used some foam tape. Now for the actual panel, I just used gray paper. It's sort of a pearlescent paper. And then I'm just going to adhere that to an A2 black card. So stay tuned to the end of this video. I'm going to have some still photos, and I'm also going to let you know now that I'll be live on my YouTube channel tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern time, where you can catch me showing off all of these stamps and all of the cards that I created using these stamps. Plus, we'll make some cards together. So that's tonight right here on my YouTube channel, starting at 7 o'clock. Please join in. I will be doing a giveaway, so I hope to see you there. Again, once I have my card panel adhered to this, my project will be pretty much complete. If you're new to my channel, I'd love it if you would subscribe and ring the bell so that you're notified of all my future videos. Please give this video a thumbs up. What do you think about this new release from Technique Junkies? Are you into this vintage style? Do you like how these cards turned out that I created? Yeah, please leave a comment. I love seeing your comments. I read each and every one of them. I had a hard time deciding where to position this sentiment on the front of this card. Could have went with the sentiment at an angle, but in the end I decided to use a little bit of an angle, and I think that really gives it a more whimsical look. So that's going to make a great birthday card for somebody. Here's a photo of my first card. I think it just looks so rich and elegant. And then if you tilt it at an angle, you can see that the Shimmering Bliss really created lots of nice different colors in the background of that panel. Even some yellow tones. And then this one is my silverish background, which I use Twilight Ink and Smoldering Ash Shimmering Bliss. So thanks so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed learning about Shimmering Bliss sprays and the new release from Technique Junkies. Have a hopeful day. Bye-bye.